You know that feeling when you walk into a space and immediately think, oh yeah, this is special. That's the River Club in downtown Jacksonville. Perched 35 floors above the city, the River Club has always been iconic, but now, after an incredible renovation, it's next level. Think sleek, modern design, fresh energy, and views that are absolutely unmatched. Whether you're meeting clients, catching up with friends, or just sneaking away for a cocktail, it's the kind of place that turns ordinary moments into memorable ones. And speaking of cocktails, the bar program is on point. Expertly crafted drinks, a wine list that impresses, and a dining experience that blends Southern hospitality with elevated flavors. It's more than a private club. It's where business meets lifestyle, and where Jacksonville shows off its best self. Learn more or schedule a tour at jacksriverclub.com. Trust me, once you see the view, you'll never look at the city the same way again. All right, well, listen, man, the first thing I have to tell you is I have to apologize.
Yeah, couldn't you have done better?
I mean, I'm really, really sorry.
I'm really disappointed for
this is probably the worst backdrop. I mean, look at this. You love living in Jacksonville.
Pretty incredible.
So I'm pretty stoked about today. And I do want to say a big thank you to Ed Burr, really my mentor in my career. And, he's the CEO of Greenpoint Holdings in Jacksonville and develops all over the state of Florida, but just a leader in the community, former chamber chair. And when I told him we were coming out to the beach to interview our guest today, I really wanted to have a great backdrop, and I think he came up with it. Yeah, he pulled it off, so I'm pretty excited about it.
You know what this reminds me of? Reminds me of when we would come out to the beach during the summer.
Easy. I don't know what you're about to say.
I'm going to keep it PG.
All right, okay.
But we do weights for football in the morning, and then we jump in your red Camaro, take the T-tops off, and drive out here to the beach, hang out for a couple hours, then go back.
There's nothing more 90s than what you just said.
I know. Then head down to the landing, the Jacksonville landing.
I know where we went to lunch. We were a little bit weird, but every time it was Wednesdays that we would go to the beach after weightlifting, and then we would stop at the landing, and then we'd go to Steak Escape on the second floor.
Steak Escape.
And
how many of our viewers remember that?
I don't think anybody remembers Steak Escape, but that was a fun time.
And there were a couple of times where you took our lives into your hands, and we almost didn't make it out driving down a one-way street in downtown Jacksonville.
I remember, I do remember that. You're alive today.
Yeah,
but there were a couple of close calls. And the one time we were on the one-way street and we're directly headed towards a police officer that was looking at us, and he was looking at us like, "What are you do? Like, what do you turn around?" And lights up.
Sorry, sir. Two boys from the west side.
We don't know much.
We don't know anything about downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah, but from the west side going to the beach, man, that was special. And I would tell you, our guest today is pretty special. I think everybody in Jacksonville knows who he's a legend for sure. And I think we're going to have a great conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. And he has become a friend of mine, a dear friend. And I want to talk through that today. And I think that we'll hear some real cool stories. But he told us the weather was going to be perfect today.
He did. So, and he dialed it in for us, much like Ed.
Yeah. So I want to thank him for bringing good weather. Usually that's the chamber's job, but he did it today. But so without further ado, I'd love to bring in Tim Deegan, Chief Meteorologist here in Jacksonville. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you too. Yep. Man, I feel stronger just shaking hands with you guys. Holy cow.
Oh, it's
just get finished working out?
Well, we do it twice a day, right?
Yeah.
Anytime the camera gets ready to roll,
pumped up just beforehand.
Jump down, do some push-ups.
Do push-ups real quick, and you're good to go.
Understood.
So we wanted to come out to the beach, and I know we talked about different locations, but man, like you are the symbol of Jack's Beach. And
is that good or bad?
That's great.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's awesome, man.
All right. Now I appreciate that, but as a meteorologist, I did hear something that was kind of not exact.
Uh-oh.
And as much as we know that meteorology is an inexact science, I think I actually went for today to become gusty and unstable. So if we go from perfect to then towering cumulus, I want to make sure
You get credit.
That the viewers know that you
credit.
called
just
it.
trying to be
ahead of time.
honest. That's all. And if nothing builds, then I'd be glad to once again take abuse.
Well, I think that as long as it builds, as soon as we wrap it up, that'd
Yeah.
be perfect.
Yeah.
But, so how you been, man? It's great to see you again, and
Good to see you too.
everything's going
It's
well.
good to see you too. It's you've mentioned it, but it's been a fun transition to go from. I have always been, although I'm a freak about the weather. Since I've been here, and it's been a few decades, I've always gone to. Well, I guess there's not a business section anymore in the paper,
Right.
but there used to be a business section, and I would literally go straight there. And so watched you seriously, gradually work through and end up, and then I guess London is where we got to have a couple meals together.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have our friendship developing.
Yeah,
That's
is.
fun. It's good to meet TJ.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
little guy.
since
You hope he's going to turn out okay.
so
I mean,
since eighth
I'm working
grade,
on
I
it.
cannot wait to do some analysis on you through him.
I got all the dirt you would ever want to know.
It's pretty.
Love it.
It's pretty dangerous.
but
It's pretty
I've
dangerous.
sworn to secrecy. So
Yeah.
Well, I'll work on you.
So everybody knows your name in Jacksonville, and I'm sure
Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad.
I get that, but the people that we've been talking to on this podcast are people that are they see you in the grocery store, they know exactly who you are, but they don't know who you are, and they never really had the opportunity to get to know you, and that's
They
what
know
this is
TV
about.
Tim.
They do, and I mean, I remember TV Tim back when I was probably in 8th grade, 9th grade.
you could say it when you were growing up. How long have you been? You 40?
So this is my, my wife says I should just say I've been here for over 43 years, but this is my 44th spring.
44 years, man. That's
Yeah.
Tim, for the fraction of people that watch the podcast that may not know your wife, I think everybody probably does, but do you want to share?
You know what? I actually, in fact, at work, I just say the mayor.
Yeah.
So my wife is the mayor of Jacksonville, Donna Deegan, which is why I was in London.
yeah.
She made her first trip there and has made a couple
And I got to
trips
tell you,
there.
she's doing a great job. She's been
Thank
a great
you.
partner with us. And, from the beginning, she reached out and was so gracious to me and brought me in. And I think we both know we got to work together to make Jacksonville move forward.
Well, to give you credit, and I suspect TJ knows this, I'm just sharing with other people, that yes, let's face it, you guys had to work together.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But we're all competitive people.
Yeah.
Things can get personal, during an election. And yeah, I know for a fact, authentically wanted to reach out to you. But for people who don't know, and I was there in London when it happened, you reached out to her also in a humble, authentic way. And certainly as a citizen, I love that because we need for y'all to be working together. I knew of your positive energies and talents, so I knew I wanted that to go forward with Jacksonville. But as her husband,
Yeah.
I mean, I know she doesn't need me to do her job, but as husbands, and I suspect wives feel the same way, so I don't want to get into the whole guy-girl thing, but as husbands, I think sometimes I take some of that stuff harder than she does. So when I saw you authentically reach out to her, and then basically you guys just went, okay, let's go do it. I appreciate that as a husband.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, it is true that the spouse, Rebecca's been through several campaigns.
Yeah.
My mom, back in the early days when I was running, I mean, when she was still alive, that from campaigns from 1999, she was still,
right.
upset. And I think the family takes it a little bit harder than the candidate does, because the candidate's just in the battle and they're just going. And
Well, at some point, I think you all, because you are successful people, at some point you basically say, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Family at home maybe is thinking more about where you were as opposed to where you are now.
So Tim, you mentioned a conversation that Daniel and Mayor had, but I understand there was a conversation that you and Daniel had after the election, and I've heard his perspective, and he's said you were extremely gracious, and that's what kind of started your friendship, and it's developed since then. Can you share with the viewers what that conversation was like?
Yeah. First of all, Sometimes, especially for those of us who have been in the same city, whether it's Jacksonville or ever, you read of each other, you see each other, despite things that happened during the race, I still felt, for whatever reason, some simpatico with you.
Yeah.
And so I wanted at some point to reach out to you. Now that doesn't mean in London I wanted to become your best buddy, but at the very least, seriously, I wanted to be honest with you, so that instead of us shaking hands and for lack of better words, doing fake smiles, let's really know where each other are coming from.
Yeah.
So I was looking for maybe wanting to do that, but I wasn't the elected official. I'm just the husband. And so when you reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's get together for a breakfast," I was like, "Awesome, fantastic." And then basically, in my opinion, yes, your words were authentic, but in my opinion, I call it eyeballing. I love eyeballing people, and that doesn't mean that I can figure out people better than anybody else. But let's try to figure out where we're coming from, even if we disagree. At least if it's authentic. I'll probably use that word way too much. But to me, for us to have a chance to sit down and eyeball each other was great. But then for you to express the fact that, in your opinion, the election wasn't run exactly how you would have liked, and I don't mean winning or losing. I mean things said, things done, and you wanting to move forward and showing humility. And again, this was not me wanting to sit down with Daniel Davis and I want him to acknowledge the fact that I'm the mayor's husband at all.
No, it was never.
Just I was hoping we'd have a guy-to-guy talk, and you did. He did, and then I shared where I was coming from, and I think pretty quickly we started talking about a lot of stuff.
We did,
Yeah.
and I'm in a good place now. I was not in a good place in London. I was probably not in a healthy mental place when we met. Because I was still trying to,
had to be tough. Yes.
It was a dark time, and I'm okay. And I want my kids to know that you're going to go through dark times in life, and it's how you react to it. And even and it got to the point where I'm always on point, on message, and if I was having a bad day, nobody's going to know it. And it got to the point where when people would ask, how are you doing? And I was at the point where I'd say, I'm not good. I'm just not, and I'm okay with saying it. And I think, T, when we met out at the beach, I had to get some things out to make sure he knew. And I think he could see that I was not in a great place. And I mean, we went for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, just kind of talking about life and what's important, and what's not. And you realize that I want to get to some of that today, because I think that his story is very strong and it's going to be good for the people that watch this. But when I got in the car and left, it was like, that was pretty healing for me to be able to have that conversation.
Tim, you mentioned authenticity.
Yes.
And the fact that y'all are able to share with our audience what that conversation was like, and now you're friends, and now Daniel's working with Mayor Deegan, your wife, to make Jacksonville better, and they're joining forces. Two very powerful people, probably arguably the two most in the city of Jacksonville, together on the same page. Moving forward, Jacksonville benefits from that. And I think the people that are viewing or listening to this are going to appreciate the fact that y'all could be real and raw, and we talk about unfiltered stories. I mean, that's a huge deal. I
think, it is. And I'm sure y'all have heard it because you're with a lot of people who have learned stuff through life. But if I've learned one thing, is this life is about relationships. Mm-hmm. And when I use the word relationship, I mean real stuff. And so basically, we started off real. You never want to see anybody hurting, I don't think, but the fact that you were willing to be, just open, just that, forget hurting, good, bad, just the fact that you were willing to be wide open, that encouraged me to be wide open. And then to your point, to me, if you can have decision makers who maybe are coming from different angles and maybe even disagree on some stuff. I'm not saying that you two do, but let's face it, we have political parties, the whole bit. But to me, if those two people have trust that somehow we're going to figure out a way to get to a solution, as opposed to we're both going to get on our soapboxes and go to labels. I mean, to me, like even today, I think I said it to you that, you asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said, of course. And I do have another answer for that I'm going to get to in a bit that you might enjoy. But I do think I tried to say to you, but if we're going to spend the time, let's make it real.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of us, once you get through going to the beach, driving the Camaro back to the landing, once you get past that stage, it's like, there's a lot of things in my life, if we're going to spend some time, let's make it worthwhile.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And when I talk about, when Darnell was on a podcast a couple weeks ago.
What a
great guy.
Everybody says that. I've read about him. I didn't know him well, but the fact that he has been so helpful to the mayor, and so therefore so helpful to the mayor's husband. What a guy! What a great story.
I mean, he just
oh my gosh,
he's incredible. Everybody in Jacksonville feels like he's their best friend, and we were just talking a little bit about it. And in my mind, the mayor reaching out, letting me know, let's move Jacksonville forward. Us actually doing it over the last year and a half, 2 years, is the most Jacksonville thing ever. And I just love that I want that to be the story.
And let's face it, I've been here for about 44 years, and yet compared to you two, I feel new. And of course, newcomers are part of Jacksonville, but to have two natives, basically, right, that come from the roots of, Donna's right there on the south side, and you guys from the west side.
Yep.
So Jacksonville. And what should we say? What road we're on right now?
Duval.
You said it right too.
You did it right. The coach
will learn.
We'll work on that. But you did it right.
Hey, you know what I look forward to for the coach? In that day that he gets us to the Super Bowl, and he can laugh at how he used to say it, and then by that time he'll say it right. That'll be a classic.
Yes.
I mean, he's as big a fan as we are.
Oh yeah.
This dude, he's got teal Chuck Taylors that he wears to the games.
Do you know what what my Christmas present was? The Christmas before we got to go to the game, season tickets with the family.
Wow.
And this is back when, because I had 3 young girls back then, and we were saving for college and all that kind of stuff. And so, but our budget was tight. And so we were, I wasn't even part of the discussion because it was a surprise. But anyhow, she got 2 season tickets, the Christmas before the game. And it was up in the, I don't remember this, but back when they had the family fun zone. So no drinking, no cussing. And so I would each daughter would go, so every 3 games I'd take a daughter. But yeah, man. And you got to know that although I was a kid in Wilmington, Delaware, and so Dad would go to the Eagles games, and Johnny Unitas, that was the very first book I read, Johnny Unitas, number 19, with the Colts. But then we moved to Texas. We moved to Texas when I was in 71. And of course the Cowboys were America's team. So the Cowboys became my team. And you guys probably didn't see this because you were busy doing other stuff the day we got it. But I had told people that, and they knew I was a Cowboys fanatic, that we're going to get the team. And when that happens, you're going to see me throw my cap on the ground and put on a jack cap. And I did it on the air, and I haven't looked back since.
That is awesome.
I
love it. So my favorite thing is to ask people their story. And so you've got a pretty awesome path to get to where you are today. What was it like growing up in your home as a kid, and then in Texas, and then how did you make your way to Jacksonville? Tell us the story from all the way back.
Okay. So, and to me, this is what I wanted to share with y'all. So some people, I'm just imagining, but when you ask them on, they might be thinking, wow, 55 minutes, that's a lot of, but you got to remember what I've been doing for 42 years. For people who don't know TV, there's always a piece in their ear. It's called an IFB. And what they're doing is, especially for those of us who aren't, if you're the news anchor, they're telling you, oh, this live shot is dead. We're going to this reporter, or we're doing this story instead of this story. A lot of stuff going on. Well, weather, we're just doing weather, right? So all they care about is that we do not go over.
Right.
And so and we're ad-libbing, right?
Yeah.
All I'm hearing is how much time I have left. So you got to think about that. For almost 44 years, people have been telling me basically when to shut up. And they have done that before. Tim, 15 seconds.
Shut
Tim,
it,
5
Tim.
seconds. Tim, shut up. You got to give sports some time. Seriously. So when I hear that I have 55 minutes, I mean, you guys are going to have to give me that.
This is different. We can go 55, 56 minutes.
Okay,
It doesn't
so
matter.
57 minutes.
Kelly's telling us that it's 19 minutes and 16 seconds
I
so
can see
far.
that.
So we're
I
good.
can see that.
We are
Okay.
really, really good.
Okay. So just start laughing at me when, as opposed to with me.
What was the family like?
Okay, so as I said, grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. I was the oldest. My dad was a comptroller, my mom a nurse. Now that's significant because people say, where did the weather stuff come from? I was apparently a pretty severe asthmatic. And when I say apparent, I wasn't clueless, but because I was basically born with it, and I just labeled with severe asthmatic. How I grew up with asthma, the first 8 years, I mean, even though I knew I was different from the kids, it's just life was like wake up middle of the night, couldn't breathe. Parents would try to calm me down. There was even a point to where because allergies would make it even worse. Dad had a great job with DuPont, but they were literally thinking about moving to the desert Southwest because of my asthma.
Wow.
That's how big of a deal it was.
Man.
I bring all that up, not for sympathy points, although I do give my parents credit for, of course I knew they loved me, but somehow they brought me up to where, but we're going to have you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Play baseball, swim, whatever, But the fact is I couldn't do everything what other kids did. As an example, Wilmington, Delaware, this is the 60s now, so not everybody had air conditioning. And my parents certainly weren't the richest, especially back then. But in my bedroom, which I shared with my two younger brothers, they got me an AC unit, window unit, only one in the house. And the reason is because during the summer up in Delaware, that's where things up there would blow up, the allergies would get so bad that, there was just the constant question, do we need to take them to the hospital? Man, they didn't have to, but do we need to? And so it became during the summers, Timmy's got to stay inside. I was Timmy with the crew cut back then. I bring all that up since you say we have a little extra time, but for whatever amount of summers that was,
right.
And it wasn't every day, but it was most summers. And the kids, for whatever reason, would come to our backyard and play. I remember kneeling on the bed, looking out the window, watching them play.
That's
most of the time
heartbreaking.
I was inside. But
Brutal.
it sounds crazy, but it's like, that's just what I did. Here's the reason I bring it up, just like now. Yeah, I'd watch the kids for a while, but for whatever reason, I would start noticing the clouds.
You got pretty quick reflexes there.
That was pretty impressive.
was like
you knocked that bumblebee down pretty
I
quick.
did not want that bumblebee to ski. Actually, I didn't want it to go up your shorts is what I did.
We appreciate that.
It's pretty good, man.
Those things
like
are
a
so
ninja.
tight, ain't nothing good.
No, that's true. That's true. Probably can. That's another story for another day. So I would start drawing the sky. Cloud here, cloud there. And eventually my parents caught on to it. And as I got a little bit older, evidently, as the oldest, I would get up with Dad. And of course, he'd be reading the paper. And after a while, he would give me page 2. Well, at least back then, what was always on page 2? National Weather Map. And then I started drawing weather maps.
How old are you?
I was like, well, here's how I know. Fast forward, we moved to Texas in 1971, and surfing gets involved in there if we want to talk about that.
For sure.
But fast forward, I'm graduating from Texas A&M, Gigamags,
There you go.
with a meteorology degree. And we have the party afterwards, right? Well, and I have my diploma. Well, the parents bring out this brown wrapped square, something. Tim, opened it up. They had kept one of the weather maps that I'd drawn in 1966. So I know for a fact I was 6 years old when I was doing this. And this is way before the Weather Channel, right? And for some reason, on the 30s, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, all the way through when they made me go to bed. So it was probably like 7:30 at night. I would have a forecast on the 30s for Philadelphia and vicinity. And I would even spell out vicinity. Now back
6 years old, 6 years old.
But I was super accurate back then. I would say the temperature to a degree. Instead of 60 or 70%, 71% chance of snow. I was good back then. Something happened. I don't know what happened. Anyhow, I mean, that's kind of freaky, right?
It is pretty freaky.
But I still have that at work with me. So that for 43 years, when in my opinion, management was giving me some ridiculous management advice, and it wasn't advice, they were telling me what to do. Even if I would get upset at the end of the day or beginning of the day, I'd look at that weather map and go, you know, thank you, God.
Yeah.
They are paying me money to basically do what I've been doing
You
since
love
I
that
was.
anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Tim, can I pause here and just ask you, because you said asthma,
Yeah.
extreme allergies.
Yeah.
What do you do because of this pollen that, I mean, it's tearing me up.
You know what? I feel for you, and that shows the transition that I've made. Now, you know, we know a whole lot more about asthma than we did back in the 60s. I think there's like, I don't know, 20 or 25 different types. In the 60s, you had asthma. Thank God, again, my parents, he went to this doctor in Wilmington, Delaware, who basically, I think to my parents at some point said, I've done all I can for Timmy. I don't know what else to do. In fact, he's the one who recommended moving to the desert Southwest. So he recommended this other doctor in Philadelphia. Now think about that. He was basically saying, send your business elsewhere. I can't help him anymore, which is cool in itself, right? Mm-hmm. Send me to this guy named Dr. Lex. I'm sure he's passed a long time ago. He said a couple things, but the most significant thing to your answer or to your question, we think, my mom's still around, so we still sort of talk about this, is he said, we think there's some asthmatics to where if we strengthen their aerobic ability, that it's never going to go away, but they're going to just overall become healthier and should be able to handle. And
Is that where the running comes in?
well, and here's what he said though, thank goodness. I remember I was like 5 or 6. He said, now running is great, but he said, Mrs. Deegan, do you know of a 5 or 6-year-old that can run aerobically? What do? They just sprint, right? So he said, I actually think you all need to get Timmy involved in swimming lessons. And then I guess I had a decent stroke, and he said, have him join the team. And they literally told the coach, for whatever reason, I didn't want to compete.
Right.
I went to the YMCA in Wilmington, Delaware, just to swim the laps. Now, fortunately for me, I learned I love the water and I love swimming. And then some of my brothers eventually did become competitive. But I learned, not only was I getting stronger lungs, but I just felt comfortable in the water.
Right.
And so then when we moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, where the water was warmer, like for instance, as kids, we would go to the Jersey Shore. Right. My parents were ocean lovers, so it started there. Moved to Corpus Christi, started going to the ocean, learned about surfing, started surfing, and here was a place where, so it's a whole combination of maybe the asthma went away, maybe the allergies weren't as strong, but now I am not impacted by pollen near as much as nearly everybody. I can't remember the last time I had an asthma attack. Now, eventually I learned to run aerobically.
Yeah.
And so to this day, that gives me incentive. But thank goodness, Dr. Lex basically said, we think if we can strengthen his lungs, he has a type of asthma that will improve. And that's what happened. Now, I also think though, because surfing is so weather dependent, and I had kept up my love and learning about weather, and amazingly, as a 10-year-old boy, a 13-year-old boy, but I really think what kept me in high school focused on I'm going to get a college degree as opposed to all the other goofy stuff that we think is great in high school, especially as boys, right? Is that my friends who also surfed learned that, wait a second, Tim seems to know when there's going to be surf more than anybody else. And it actually gave me incentive to learn more. Well, why do we get a swell sometimes and why don't we? And so
why do you? Why is there a swell sometimes and then sometimes there's not?
Do you really want to get into this now?
Well, I want to ask too. I do want to know that. But I mean, you're synonymous with surfing, and I wanted to know, do you remember the first time you went out? Like when you first started surfing, do you remember that day? Is it all run together? Or?
I remember we lived on Corpus. This is going to sound funny. We lived on Corpus Christi Bay. Corpus Christi, very windy place. And you're thinking, how do you learn how to surf on a bay? Well, we were 7th grade, 8th grade. I say we because me and my next youngest brother. But in northwest side of Corpus Christi Bay, which we lived right just about on the bay, you would get this 2-foot chop and you could surf on it. And so we could go from high school to there. And so the first day became, of course, this is what we're going to do every day we can do it. We couldn't drive to the beach. We were about 20 miles. It's where we lived sort of would have been like if we're west side.
Driving from the west side, yeah.
So we couldn't get there until finally someone's oldest sister said, okay, we'll start taking. Now, what I do remember is once we did that, I do, when you first catch a wave, you're going straight in, right?
Yeah.
But of course, what you really learn is you don't want to ride the white water. You want to ride along the face of the wave, right? And I do remember the very first day that I hopped up and I rode along the face. And then it was like,
you were hooked.
Dude, I mean, that was like a legal drug. Seriously, it was gone. So thank God that I was also concerned about reading books and learning about the weather because I learned there was a combination of the two. I remember my mother maybe was 16 years old, and she admitted to this the other day. She said, and she knew that we were surf nuts by then. She said, boys, once you go to college and you grow up, you're not gonna be able to do this for the rest of your life. And so when Mom comes over to the house these days, and I have 4 boards in my garage and I'm still doing it, and then once retirement goes, I'll have a little more time.
Doing it all the time.
But again, if that makes sense, I don't know. But I really do think that surfing helped keep me focused through high school to say that's what I want to get my degree.
Does make sense, and help build your respiratory capacity.
Yes. Oh my gosh!
How often do you get out now? I know it's dependent upon the waves.
Yeah, but you know what? And I'll mention one of my daughters is because here's what happened. By the time my daughters were 12, let's say 12, 9, and 6, maybe even younger, they were doing all the sports, and I'd already done some of the surfing stuff with them. But to them, it was just another sport, soccer, volleyball, surfing, whatever. And that was fine, but until there was a surf camp, and it still goes on now. It was called the salty cowgirls, saltwater cowgirls, and it was only for girls. And my daughter, with one of her friends, in other words, they didn't have the inhibition about, oh, boys might be watching.
Right.
They went, they became hooked. And here's the point I'm making. That by that point, I'm a dad, I'm busy meteorologist. I want to keep making even more money, right? All that kind of stuff that you think about as a dad. And so I still surfed, but I was getting pretty picky. My threshold for when I would, to your point, we don't always have the greatest waves, right? And so my threshold for when I would go out it happened slowly, but was like, I wasn't going out a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was getting pretty picky. And I'll never forget it. It was a summer days, early in the morning. And I finally realized when my daughter's friend would call, it wasn't, is it good enough to surf? It's what time do you want to meet at the beach? I mean, it could be 40-knot northeast wind. It could be 2 inches.
Right.
It was what time you want to be at the beach. And I don't care what the conditions were. They'd come back giggly girls and stoked. And I finally went, oh yeah, that's what this is about.
Yep.
And so especially because it's been now, counting Donna's baby, it's been 13 years since we've had a child in the house. So because I've always gone to work, for the last 35 years, gone to work in the afternoon, there were no kids to take care of.
Right.
So I've had every morning. And so it pretty much has gotten to where 5 out of 7 days I'm in the ocean. Not always surfing,
right?
But I will run and I will hop in the ocean. If there's waves, I'll surf, and if not, I'll just get in the ocean. So more frequently now, actually, than ever.
Such great exercise.
Oh my gosh!
People that haven't surfed before probably think, oh, it's easy to paddle out, but obviously, we're into fitness, so
Yeah.
we lift weights. It's a totally different kind of exercise. So it doesn't matter how many muscles you have. When you start paddling, even just if it's flat,
Yeah.
it's such a different type of workout.
I'm so glad you said the paddling part, because you're right. People, I think, tend to think about the standing up and
Right,
that
yeah.
part. And so especially like if it's an older guy, I'll sort of have fun and say, okay, we're just going to go paddle out first, have some fun. Okay, great. And you're right. Just the act of laying on that thing and balancing, right? Let alone trying to figure out it's an amazing workout.
It is.
Yeah.
And then it's a sprint. I mean, you gotta catch it. And
Yeah.
man, have you heard about the new surf park
Of
that's
course.
coming to Jacksonville?
Of
I mean, it
course.
seems like that's going to be a big game changer for competition.
I think it makes so much sense,
Yeah.
especially because now we've seen, and I should know the name, you chamber guys will know, we've seen the developments where they actually have built, what's the place called?
E-Town?
Well, not only E-Town, but I mean,
Austin.
even before the surfing, the places where they've built huge inland beaches.
Yeah.
Some different developments that we have
Beach
in Jacksonville.
walk.
Yeah.
And
Yes, beach
Nocatee.
walk and whatnot. I think all of us were wondering, is that going to work? Oh my gosh, it worked.
Oh, yeah.
We have relatives, and this is, to the word true. We have relatives that have moved from Jersey, and for the first several years, because we kind of knew where they moved to, but not really. We assumed every time they said, like, you're just talking, oh yeah, we're going to go to the beach Sunday morning. We totally assumed they were going
Right.
to the beach. Well, no, they're from Jersey, and they're at Beach Walk, loving life. For them, beach they were and still are absolutely fine going to the beach 2 miles east of I-95, right? So to me, once that happened, the idea of someone coming here with the surf park made so much sense,
So much.
as long as they were going to do it right and professional. I mean, to me, if you come to Jacksonville, I think you got to do it right.
We'll have world-class competitions
I know.
coming here.
And
It's going to be.
I'm sure you'll be out there.
From what I can tell, this group is going to do it right.
Yeah, it's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. So what's the scariest moment you've had on a surfboard when you've been out or out in the ocean?
Well, I would be lying if I didn't say, even to this day, that for a second or two, when my body isn't convinced it's a dolphin, that there's that moment probably once, because I see dolphins every day I'm out. So at least once, I mean, if we're going to be honest, at least once a week, for at least a brief second, my body goes, oh, is that a shark? Seriously.
Yeah.
Now, I think if there's ever moments during the week that I forget that I'm not my highest power, that I'm not God, those are moments.
Yeah.
Because I'll go, thank you, God.
And just to think about the vastness of the ocean and how massive it makes you feel like, I don't want to say insignificant because we're all significant, but compared to the ocean,
I agree.
It humbles you, right?
And I think in a good way, but absolutely. I think it's such a reminder that, but to the, but outside of animal life, since we talked about paddling, you might think that it would be getting on a big wave. The scariest moment in my life was at the Abacos. We used to go when I was younger with another family who had kids about the same age as us. And Elbow Cay, and there's a place there called Garbanzo's. You ever heard of the beans, the garbanzo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told that that's actually how it got its name. The two surfers back in the late 60s discovered it. Typical surfers, no money. And the only thing they could afford was they just bought a bunch of garbanzo beans and lived on it for 2 weeks and discovered this break called Garbanzo's. It's just south of Rush Reef for people who go to Elbow. Anyhow, there was one particular day that it was really big. And this place at Rush Reef, you only do it. You can't do it you can't do it at low tide just because there's so much reef. It's not even a matter of wiping out on the reef. You couldn't get to it because it's so rocky. So you'd have to go at mid tide to high tide, and then surf it then. Otherwise, the waves would break it on the reef. Who knows? Maybe kids these days can do it. We wouldn't do it back then. Big day. Paddle out was really tough. But if I have any talent at all surfing, it's paddling for whatever reason. Maybe it's the big hands. I don't know. But as a swimmer, I do have some talents there. I say that because the guy who I was with, who's a much better surfer, he couldn't get out. It was so big and so continuous. I did. But we didn't go out until after high tide. So now we're heading back toward low tide. And I probably paddled 45 minutes at least. So now we're almost another hour closer to low tide. And it was big. And so I was getting picky about picking the wave. Well, can you hear what's happening here? Mm-hmm. By the time it's like going, I got to catch a wave. It's getting toward low tide, as in it's go time. As in, not just I want to have fun to catch a wave, not just I want the adrenaline. It's if I want to live. If I don't get in, right? And there was a really strong current. Elbow Cay's pretty small, and so and it's not like I could have. Not that I wanted to sit out there for 6 hours, but I would have drifted to the next island. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was really getting to be a hairy situation. So finally did catch a wave, but I do remember thinking, I'm either going to go in and lacerate my whole body, or what's going to. It was like we sort of use that time go time as in, but that was a really significant go time.
I had a scary moment like that on the side of a mountain with tree wells when we were skiing a couple years back, and it's like this panic starts, and you have to start talking to yourself about not panicking, because you realize that's how most people get in trouble, when they start to panic and they lose their sense of, all right, this survival mode that I have to get into. And I can't imagine knowing the time is clicking away.
Yeah,
There's nothing you can do.
And I think it's an interesting transition, because if you're doing it skiing, you probably had the same feeling, and that is that you went out there to have fun. Yeah, maybe it's sort of an adrenaline rush fun, but you went out to have fun. And after a while, you're gradually really realizing, at least intellectually, man, this is getting serious.
Yeah.
No, this is really serious. And then to your point, I'm beginning to hyperventilate. This is not good, Take a deep breath. Yeah.
Well, I was the third person that walked on water a couple years back, because I know for sure it was a shark that I was over off Ponte Vedra swimming, and you could feel it. And it wasn't like a little brush. And I'm telling you,
you got out of there so quick.
So, I mean, I was trying to tell the boys, shark, ran into me. And they're like, Dad,
that wasn't a shark.
That wasn't a shark. I was like, yes, it was. But you should have seen how fast I came out of the water.
I think, obviously we talked about how you're a legend. People in Jacksonville know you really well.
I laugh when you say that, but
it's true.
I'll say
Tim,
thank you. But anyhow,
you're an icon in Jacksonville. You've been around a long time. You've been on the news, night in and night out for years and years, decades now. Know you're retiring soon. Thank you for what you've brought to the community.
Thanks for putting up with me. Yeah. And I know, seriously, I mean that because I say meteorology is an inexact science. And I say that with some humility, but the fact is, you do learn after a while. People depend on you. The very first time that I understood the seriousness of this, I'll try to make this short, but when I first started here, it was Good Morning Jacksonville. But the show to do, especially back then, was to do the 6 and 11. And Ray Boylan, who was the chief meteorologist back then, he went on vacation, and it was the Florida-Georgia game, which of course I knew was a huge deal. And it was only like 83 or 84. Maybe 82, but I hadn't been here long. But I'd been here long enough to know that was a big game.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get it right. It may have been the Gator Bowl. One of the two big games. Anyhow, we were all forecasting a nor'easter. We were all forecasting that there was going to be some rain. I was forecasting that the heavy rain would stay at the beach. It's going to be raw, but it's just going to be a mist. I got a call. In fact, she was a lady from the church that I go to. Or went to at the beach, St. Paul's. And she said, Tim, we've had tickets for the boys, and they had like 3 sons, young, but they've all been sick. And I don't want to take them to and remember, I've only been here a couple of years, but I don't want to take them to the game. It's going to be washed out. Oh, no. As long as you don't mind, windy, and it's going to be chilly, but it's just going to be mist. Well, and people can check me on which game it was. We had so much rain, even the players ended up having to stand on the benches.
Right, it was that.
Because the water was just flowing.
It was way more than mist. I mean, I literally felt like I had to go to confession for that.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson on as much as people make fun, obviously it gets serious during hurricanes. Yeah. And you learn that quickly. And thank goodness we live in an area where, for the most part, hurricanes go by, but it's never a guarantee. And the way I look at it under those situations is that because you can kind of freeze up. It's almost more the ego. because you want to get it right.
Right.
And what I found helped me was I started telling myself, Tim, you're not trying to get the forecast perfect. You're trying to help people make the best decisions they can make.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a business, whether it's a dad, whether it's a mom, whoever. You're trying to help people make decisions. And at least for me, that really helped me not let the hurricane get me too hyped, you know, as big of a deal as it is.
So the reason I bring up the fact that you're an icon is everybody knows it. That's, you know, listening or watching, but also it puts you in the public eye over the last several decades. And I know, you know, we're talking about unfiltered stories, and you were clear before you came on that you wanted to talk about some things that could help people. And so I wonder if you would share with us maybe some of the struggles you've had, you know, over the years, and you know, obviously how you made it through that.
Yep.
You know, what you might say to some people that are listening in or viewing that are going through something similar. Obviously probably not as public as what you did, but just share from your heart for a little bit about some of that.
I appreciate it. And for those who don't know, now coming up on 12 years, got a DUI. Picture was all over the paper. So without making it too long, I had enjoyed drinking beer since me and Jackie Borman, who was a fellow surfer back in Texas at 15. We both downed 3 Schlitz, like in 15 minutes, whatever. As life went on, whereas for a lot of guys, that was still just something fun they would occasionally do. At some point, I knew I was doing it for way more reasons. And I can't point, at least initially, to, oh, this terrible thing happened and therefore I started. No, I liked how it made me feel. And you know, the TV Tim thing I can now joke at, but I know for a fact, I let the TV Tim thing give me a reason. I'm not saying it's a good reason. Gave me a reason to isolate. Because after a while, it felt like, as awesome as it was and still is to this day, hey, Tim, can you come give this weather talk? Can you, especially 4th and 5th graders, I love it. But as life became busy and you want to nail your forecast, and the whole TV thing, I put the idea of me being by myself, where I could just be by myself, on such a pedestal. Because I didn't have to be TV Tim. I didn't have to be Smiley. And I hesitate to even now share that because I don't think my family members forced me into that. You know, people were real with me. We had great family life, but for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to be by myself. And for whatever reason, I felt most comfortable if I didn't have just 1 pint, but I had 10 pints. And I knew it was an issue. There's no doubt about it. In fact, looking back on it, it got to where I would convince myself to drink more pints so that I would feel comfortable being by myself drinking. I mean, it sounds so ridiculous now, but it made sense back then. Then I got the DUI. First couple of hours, and I'm still convinced to this day that actually the police officers were helping me. They gave me a lot of time before I went to jail to try to, I think, to help me. Because initially I was just not acknowledging the situation at all. Got to jail. When I got to jail, people recognized me in a friendly way, but they said, "Hey, Tim, we're gonna put you in a place of solitary." And it was the longest night of the year. Literally, it was. I'm not just saying that. I mean, it was the night you turned the clocks forward. So it was 2:00, and it was 2:00 again. For those who believe in God, I am very comfortable saying God. Some don't, which is why I like using the word higher power. I really do believe that was the higher power saying, "I'm going to give you a little extra time, Tim." And I do remember saying at that moment, I need to do something radical. For me, that eventually became, I need to stop drinking. That for me became a freedom. That is not me saying everybody should stop drinking, of course. To me, my biggest takeaway was, I I am not my own highest power. And you got to understand, this is coming from a guy who I really authentically feel. I grew up in an authentic spiritual family life. But after a while, I was so convinced that if I got myself in this situation, I got to get myself out of this situation. But I took it to the point to where I was my own God. I mean, really, that's what I was doing. And so for me, yes, the not drinking was and is a big deal. It's a freedom for me to just not even think about it. But for an even bigger deal, it was the realization I'm not my highest power, meaning that yes, God, but, and that's why to me eyeballing is so big.
Yeah.
That's why relationships to me are so big, that no one is alone out there. Whether you think it's your own fault or you don't think it's your own fault, I am such a big believer. I mean, it sounds so basic, but believe me, man, I was locked into the only place I want to be is by myself. And I thought I loved people, daughters, wife, the whole bit, but I wanted to be by myself. And I would say for anybody out there, I don't care what the situation is, whether it's somebody else's fault or totally yours, you are never alone.
That's good.
I mean, it's even now saying it's like, well, of course, but man, when you're deep in it, gosh, my hole was so dark and so deep. Now, don't get me wrong. I still somehow kept my job. I had a great place. I was still occasionally surfing. So I know other people have been in much worse situations that the world sees. But from where I was, you couldn't have gotten darker.
Well, you've helped me out a lot with that conversation, and I appreciate you being so open, because I know somebody's going to be watching this.
Absolutely.
And they probably need to figure out how to change before it's too late.
It's you know, there are people who, see if this makes any sense, that I can almost strangle to death, because to me the switch can be so huge and so free. That's, for some people it may sound like so much work, but it's really like, look at someone else's eyeball, listen to what they have to say. Maybe they're going to let you vent back, and man, boom, you can be free.
Yeah.
And that's good for people that maybe aren't the ones struggling. We all struggle at some point, but the people that have somebody in their lives that they care about that's struggling, just to be there for them. You may not even know what to say, but just to be present sometimes.
You are so right on. Just to be there and listen. Just to be there and listen. And you know what? For spouses, don't take it bad if it's not your fault, if you can't figure it out. Maybe as a spouse, just sit there and be. And maybe that person has to go to a counselor, a sponsor, or somebody else. Let that part of it work too. And don't feel like, I'm so glad you brought that up. Don't feel like that you're a failure because you haven't helped this person. I'll put it this way. Donna, my wife, at least, everybody's different, right? But at least for me, she wouldn't let us get in dangerous situations. But the way she handled it, looking back on it, for me was perfect. She was there when the event occurred. I think you know my wife.
Oh, yeah.
She's perfectly willing for things to go from the brain to the mouth. She just let me do my thing and listened. And fortunately for me and for her and for others, I went to some people and they were to give, for what was for me, perfect advice.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable. That means a lot to us, to the viewers.
Oh gosh, if that possibly helps somebody,
and
I'll
it
do
will.
this every week.
That's right. So we're dialing this thing in, man. It's already been 55 minutes.
Yeah, believe it. I told you.
It's crazy
I
how
told
quick
you.
this goes by, but we got a couple more questions for you, and we'll bring this in for a landing. So we usually ask guests to bring in a picture or two that are important to them, and we were going to see if you had an opportunity to bring a couple in.
I brought this picture that shows that I'm the best surfer in the world.
All right.
That I want to show you. No, that's not true. That's not true. So, so this picture is of is me and the mayor.
That's an amazing.
And I'm trying to be careful not to share too much about her because I know you guys asked me. But for people who wonder, let me see if this makes sense. And I think you'll get it because I think you ran because you care about the people of Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
But that deep empathy, I think, can almost become a kryptonite in that you care so much. How do you keep it up?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, right? That's her church. She still goes to church, but we have learned, and because we used to run together just every Sunday, we now run together every single morning. And because she's got to get in there early, we'll get up at 4:30 in the morning. And yes, to see the beautiful pictures, but that is her way of settling.
Yes.
Getting her priority. I'll tell you a real quick mansplain thing, okay? Because you guys might understand this. So I'm sorry to say, the first 3 or 6 months, because I'm working till about dinner time, she works, but I'm in TV, right? So I sort of keep up with current events. Plus,
right.
I've been around for a while, so I think I know what's happening with the city. And I got to be honest, guys, probably for the first 6 months, every single evening, because I thought I was helping her, as she's literally walking down the hallway, carrying her purse with her sneakers on and her heels in the bag, hasn't even sat down yet. I'm saying, you know what I think you guys should do, Donna? Almost lost my marriage.
She's like, shut your mouth. That's what you can do.
Oh my gosh. And finally realized that, at 8:30 in the morning, after we've been on the beach for a couple hours and she's been allowed to breathe, then we can have these conversations. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Timing means everything, right?
So, so we're pretty busy, as you know, and scheduled. But this is a place that we started going to together over 20 years ago.
That's awesome.
That's Costa Rica. And if the chamber really needs to get a hold of her and for some reason you can't find her, it might be that.
Is it Los Sueños?
It's not. It's in Guanacaste. It's the northwest coast.
So beautiful. The sunsets are just incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, you know what? And I'm sharing some more secrets of the mayor. Is that so we have a friend there who actually owns that place, and he takes sunset pictures and puts them. People see it globally now. Wow. But he's from here.
Right.
So she sends him sunrise pictures of Jax. He sends her sunset picture of Costa Rica. So
that's pretty awesome.
She's sort of being a chamber girl, even there. Should I go on with the pictures?
Oh yeah, let's do one more and then we got one last question.
So I should be telling you I'm sharing this picture because of beautiful Danielle and Drew, who are beautiful, intelligent people, but also because Donna's dog, who happens to put up with me.
I've heard a lot about the dog.
That's Og the dog. She calls him Augie. The rest of them call him Og the dog. And that's the true king of the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
It looks like you guys are having a blast in that picture.
Yeah. Near the ocean, and as long as Donna knows that Og is nearby.
Do you remember what y'all were laughing at?
Probably Drew is the comic. So probably Drew is making fun of either me or his sister.
He looks like he said something pretty,
Yeah. He's who both now, so Drew now has his own mortgage, lives in the city. Donna wanted to bet with the mayor of Tampa because her daughter loves Tampa, but he made a bet with, I can't think of his name, former mayor, but basically was the mayor thing when things really blew up. And she actually went to talk to him about, how did you do that? And they've become pretty good friends. But she bet him. She said, I'm going to win a bet, and the bet is that at some point Jacksonville is going to be a place to where my daughter's going to want to move back. Her and her husband just have now moved back to Riverside.
Good. Makes me feel really good because that's my job.
Well, no, you guys are doing a great job. Seriously.
Well, speaking about jobs, we've got incredible jobs. You're about to retire from one of the coolest jobs in Jacksonville.
It's an amen. Truly, it's an amen.
And so, but growing up, there were several jobs that we did just because we were surviving. What was the hardest or the worst job that you've ever had?
My dad really believed in building character, and I say that with love. So can I give two and I'll give real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I said I'm from Wilmington, Delaware. We'd go to the Jersey Shore. So think about that mentality. So my dad moves to Corpus Christi, Texas, because of DuPont again. And by this time he's management. So somehow that means he's met some farmers, ranchers, guys that owned a lot of land. But they at least back then, cotton is what they grew. And I've never been on a cotton field, seen some movies about it. But my first summer job in Texas, so this is 7th grade going in 8th grade, Dad got me a job working the cotton fields. Have you ever worked the cotton fields?
No.
Never have.
Can you imagine in South Texas who works the cotton fields?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful people. And they, at least back then, would speak English. but they're basically with family. And these are migrant farm workers who would travel all over the country. And they're there with their kids and stuff. Never done it before in my life. Literally showed up, and my dad loves me. Bless his soul, he loves me. I show up, this guy from the East Coast, no gloves, at a cotton field. But I was one who used to mow yards and do all that kind of stuff to raise money, you know, so I knew about hard work and that kind of stuff. And very first day, and I'm not exaggerating, I don't know if you've ever been to South Texas, but I mean, those fields go on forever. There was these big orange water buckets. And he said, Tim, and we were hoeing cotton, which meant, and they had to teach me too, you didn't want to hoe the cotton plant over.
Right.
I mean, but that's how green I was. I didn't know the difference between the weeds and the cotton. I was initially knocking down their harvest, but eventually they taught me, no, you're trying to knock down the weeds, Tim. 1 mile, Tim, go down the end of that field, come back, you guys will get some water. South Texas, summer heat, no gloves. These guys were friendly with me for the first 30 minutes, but for the next 10 hours, they're telling jokes in another language. I knew how to count in Spanish, but that was it.
You were the joke. That's what
I was definitely the joke. Back then, they didn't even get paid minimum wage. Anyhow, to be totally honest, I used to say that was my summer job. I think I did it for about 3 weeks.
1 mile?
No,
and
1 mile.
And then 1 mile.
Then you'd get water. You do that till lunch. They would all go to their homes, and I'm using that word loosely.
Yeah.
I would basically try to find some shade. I learned not to make sandwiches with mayonnaise in them.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. So that was one job. Summer job lasted 3 weeks.
He may have beat us on that one.
Okay,
I think you have the worst job.
Now here's another one. This did last all summer long.
I just felt the water drop.
Did you?
You were right.
He was right. He was on time.
I mean, I cannot believe you were actually right.
I don't blame you for not believing me.
Oh my goodness, that is.
There actually, some of these might start producing some hail, so we don't want to damage the.
We need to.
So I'll do this story real quick.
All right.
And this was so that we could surf. It was a great summer job because we could surf. In fact, amazingly, I now remember the name of the condominiums. Beachcomber Condominiums in Port Aransas, Texas. Scott Sullivan was my buddy. He got us a job, and our job was to help the maintenance workers at the condo, but it was on the island. And the job didn't start until 9, finished at 4. So we drive out early, surf early, work our tails off, surf in the evening. So that part was awesome. Here's the bad part. Every day they had a fish house. Okay, see where I'm going here?
Yeah.
And so the rich people who got to go fishing all day, they would come back. And if you're a tourist or have a lot of money, you don't want to clean up the fish, right? Mm-hmm. So you catch the fish. They would go to the fish house, cut off fish, fillet, do all that kind of stuff, leave it there all day long in South Texas heat. Every other day, we took turns. Every other day, that would be the job. You would have to go down and clean the fish house. It would take you like at least an hour. I mean, I'm almost ready to, because as dumb high schoolers, you would think, okay, then don't eat something stupid just before, but we would, you know, oh, there's a bunch of whatever, you know, nachos. Yeah, I'm going to have a whole thing of nachos.
Jalapenos.
There'd be no wind, flies all over the place. So those were
both of those are worse.
I'm just telling you, I thought we won.
Yeah, we used to dig swimming pools.
You know,
that gave me incentive to study and get a degree.
Oh yeah, we feel the exact same way. Well, before the weather comes in that you forecasted, I just want to
see. First, I got to say, my wife thinks I'm selfish. She thinks that I'm a very selfish person to get happy when a storm actually shows up.
Right.
And I don't want people to be hit by lightning. But if we forecast it, you kind of want some verification.
I told you so.
Yeah.
But man, what a great conversation. It started off pretty real, and I think that it was important for us to go.
No, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
You know, just for people to see your personality and to hear your story. For me, this has been incredible, and I hope you see it worthy of your time.
No, hey man, thank you. Thank you. Every second worthwhile. So I appreciate it, guys.
Jacksonville, and I think you just did it.
No, hey, and as I retire, you know, I'm there for free, but if I can help pump the First Coast, I am your guy.
You got to take us out surfing too.
We'll do it.
That'd be fun.
We'll paddle out first, and then we'll.
If we can make it out, right?
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
man.
guys.
It's been
Appreciate
an awesome
it.
time.
It's really good getting to know you even better.
Yes, sir.
This episode is brought to you by Big Chief Tire. Big Chief Tire isn't just a business, it's a Jacksonville legacy. Locally owned and fourth-generation family run since 1961, Big Chief has spent more than 60 years earning the trust of this community. Their reputation is built on honesty, transparency, and a commitment to guest service that goes far beyond the standard. Whether you need new tires, routine maintenance, or a quick repair, you can count on being treated like family, because that's exactly how they do business. With 6 convenient locations across Northeast Florida and a team that knows your name, Big Chief Tire is proud to keep Jacksonville rolling. One car, one customer, and one generation at a time. Thanks for tuning in to Speakeasy Jacks. If you enjoyed the conversation, follow us on our social media platforms, share it with a friend, and make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.